I'm really happy to extend you all a very, very warm welcome in today's session where we're going to talk about one of the most important things to be talked and discussed today in these days of COVID-19 pandemic, that is the youth, in which we see the future of this post-COVID-19 world. In words of former Indian Prime Minister Shri Rajiv Gandhi, he once said, India is an old country but a young nation. We are impatient, I am impatient, and I too have a dream of an India strong, independent, and self-reliant. It's my pleasure today to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Pinky Kekana, Honorable Deputy Minister of Communications, Government of South Africa. I'm also delighted to extend a very warm welcome to Honorable Shri Krishna Alavuru, Joint Secretary, All India Congress Committee, National in Charge, Indian Youth Congress, and our leader who leads us from the front, Shri Srinivas BV, Honorable National President, Indian Youth Congress. I hope each one of you and your loved ones are doing fine in this ongoing pandemic, which has shown us a completely new world. Today, I'm also reminded of the common roots on which both India and South Africa have earned their place in the world. Our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, built this nation in the essence of non-violence, peace, and love. So did the great Nelson Mandela in South Africa. I would now take this opportunity to request Honorable Shri Krishna Alavuru to please give the opening address for today's session.
Good evening, everyone. And I think it might be good afternoon in South Africa. A very warm good afternoon to Ms. Kekana. We are delighted to have you talk to us and share your views with us. We really thank you for taking the time out. I know your schedule is probably quite busy, so we really appreciate the time. I'd also like to thank Gautam and the team for setting up this conversation. And I think the topic for today is an extremely relevant one, which is what is the role of the youth that we should be playing in the current COVID-19 pandemic across the globe. I think at the end of the day, every government, whether it is a national government, a provincial or state government, a district government, or a smaller level of government, has its limitations in what it can do to tackle COVID. At the end of the day, if this pandemic has to be tackled effectively, citizens will have to come forward and share their part of the responsibility. And given that this pandemic has greater effect on people who are older and children, what that means basically is that the youth of the world has the biggest responsibility to do what it can to help governments, to help people, to help the healthcare workers, to help people who are in the front line of this fight against the pandemic. I think in that context, Srinivas ji, who is our national president in India, has done an exceptional job in leading from the front in serving people in the COVID affected time since the nation went into a lockdown in March. He and the Youth Congress team have worked tirelessly, putting themselves in situations where many doctors and frontline workers would be scared to put themselves in. night and day were made one, and they worked to serve the people who needed help the most. From migrant workers who were hungry, to people who needed hospitalization, to people who needed help with burying the deceased. The work that he has done has been widely acknowledged and appreciated, and I think he's a role model for people, the youth of India, and I would even say the rest of the world, to learn from in terms of what can be done if one puts their heart first and then their minds and bodies into serving people during this very difficult time. With that, I leave it to Gautam, Srinivas, and Ms. Kekana to share their thoughts, and I thank all of you for giving us this opportunity to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we move forward for the keynote address of Ms. Kekana, I would now request our leader who has always set an example, who has led us from the front on ground and shown us the way forward to being in life, Shri Srinivas BV, Honorable National President, Indian Youth Congress, to kindly give a special address to the fellows and welcome Ms. Kekana.
Gautam, can I just suggest that Srinivas will be speaking in Hindi? Could you just translate the gist later for Ms. Kekana's benefit?
Yeah, of course. I'll do that, sir. I'll do that, sir.
Hi, Kekana ji. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. मैं सबसे पहले मैं special thanks to Gautam and team and our Indian Youth Congress in charge Krishna Alavar ji with me. मैं आप लोग से मैं हिंदी में बात करना चाहता हूँ, थोड़ा comfortable हूँ, इसीलिए afterwards Gautam ji is going to translate what I spoke to in this. सबसे पहले मैं आदरणीय राहुल गांधी जी को मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूँ। राहुल गांधी जी ने सबसे पहले हम लोग के लिए इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया, जो इस कोरोना महामारी सबसे बड़ी लेवल पे इस देश में मुसीबत आने वाला है, पूरा आप लोग गरीब मजदूर और माइग्रेंट के साथ रह के उनको मदद करने के लिए उनके तरफ से आदेश आया। और सबसे पहले सरकार को भी जगाने का काम आदरणीय राहुल गांधी जी ने जो किया था 12 फरवरी को ट्वीट के तौर पे उन्हें किया था। उसके बाद में लगातार भारतीय युवा कांग्रेस आदरणीय कृष्णा अलवरू जी, हम सभी टीम लोग मिलके 25 तारीख को जूम मीटिंग करके जूम मीटिंग में हमने डिसीजन लिया। डिसीजन लेने के बाद में आगे कैसे फील्ड में जाना, क्या क्या बेसिक काम करना, लोगों को रेस्क्यू कैसे करना और लोगों को राशन, ड्राई राशन से लेके फूड से लेके मेडिकल रिक्वायरमेंट तमाम चीजें कैसे कैसे किस लेवल पे लोगों को मदद करने के लिए हमने प्लान किया। जो कांग्रेस पार्टी और भारतीय युवा कांग्रेस का ये परंपरा है हमेशा लोगों को मदद करना। तो ये यूथ कांग्रेस, भारतीय युवा कांग्रेस इस दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में एक हिस्सा लेने का ये गर्व की बात है मेरा। महात्मा गांधी जी का जो आइडियोलॉजी लेके हम लोग हमेशा चलता है, महात्मा गांधी जी का जो सोच है इस कांग्रेस पार्टी और भारतीय युवा कांग्रेस का, इस सबसे बड़ा जो पेंडेमिक में काम करने के लिए हम सब लोग सभी एक एक कार्यकर्ता ने सड़क पे उतर के लोगों को मदद करने का काम किया। ये जो भी क्रेडिट कृष्णा जी इतने सारे चीज बता दिया, सभी भारतीय युवा कांग्रेस का एक एक सदस्य और प्रदेश अध्यक्ष, नेशनल ऑफिस बेरर, डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्रेसिडेंट और असेंबली प्रेसिडेंट, सबको ये श्रेय जाएगा। और आदरणीय राहुल गांधी, सोनिया गांधी जी और प्रियंका गांधी जी, उन लोग का जो भी आदेश था उस काम को हमने आगे लेके गया और ये श्रेय सबको जाएगा। मैं ज्यादा बात नहीं रखना चाहता हूँ, जो वी वांट टू लिसन योर वर्ड्स आल्सो। सो गौतम जी, मेरा जो भी बात है बाद में मैडम को आपने ट्रांसलेट कर दें।
जी, right. So, in words of Srinivas ji, it is on the instructions of our leader, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who from the very first day was deeply concerned about the corona pandemic coming in India and devastating many lives, affecting many households. It is on his instructions of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, that the Indian Youth Congress, which is proudly one of the largest youth organizations of the world, came on streets, went village to village, city to city, tried to search the most affected of the people in the ideology of Mr. Mahatma Gandhi, Sri Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, who taught us to stand by the poorest of the poor, the worst of the worst affected in the most worst times. And following that ideology on the footsteps of Srimati Sonia Gandhi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi, it is the Indian Youth Congress which went on ground to do each and everything possible to bring forward the most affected people and try to serve them in a way that their pain decreases. I would now request Honorable Ms. Pinky Kekana, Her Excellency, the Deputy Minister, to please begin with her keynote address.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me recognize Mr. Krishna Alavaru, Honorable Joint Secretary from the Indian National Congress, and recognize Mr. Srinivas, Honorable National President from the Indian Youth Congress, Mr. Gautam Seth from the Indian Congress, who's our spokesperson from the Indian Congress, our comrade members of the Indian National Congress and the Indian Youth Congress. Let me recognize, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys who may have joined us in this Zoom meeting, our future leaders of South Africa and India. Namaste. And in my African language, we say, Sawubona. I greet you today as we honor and observe the United Nations World Youth Skills Day. And in South Africa, we are 3 days away from celebrating Mandela Day with the whole world. And let me also share with members of the Indian Youth Congress and the leadership from the Indian National Congress to say, we have just lost one of Madiba's daughters, Zinzi Mandela, who was ambassador. She passed on, and it's a great loss for the ANC and for South Africa at large. The World Youth Skills Day 2020 takes place under challenging and extraordinary circumstances this year. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we all spoke about it, and lockdown measures have led to the worldwide closure and delays for educational institutions, threatening the education of youth across the globe. Threats to education of the youth also threatens the continuity of skills development, and most importantly, a threat to youth economic participation globally. It is estimated, Program Director, that nearly 70% of the world's learners are affected by school closures across education levels currently. Respondents to a survey of TVET institutions jointly collected by UNESCO, the International Labour Organization, and the World Bank reported that distance learning and training has become the most common way of imparting skills, with considerable difficulties regarding, amongst others, technology infrastructure and access to the internet, curricular adaptation, trainee and trainer preparedness, connectivity, or assessment and certification processes. Now, prior to the current crisis, young people aged 15 to 24 years were 3 times more likely than adults to be impacted by unemployment and resulting poverty. In post-COVID-19 societies, young people will be called upon to contribute to the recovery effort, but they will need to be equipped with the knowledge and skills to successfully manage evolving crises and challenges. They will need knowledge and skills, but most importantly, they will need resilience to adapt to future disruptions, because this global pandemic won't be the last. And from information coming out of the World Health Organization, COVID-19 won't be ending soon. It is for this reason, Program Director, that the United Nations themed this year's World Youth Skills Day as Skills for a Resilient Youth. Rising youth unemployment is one of the most significant problems facing the global economy and today's society for both developed and developing countries alike. The latest global employment trends for Youth 2020, Technology and the Future of Jobs shows that since 2017, there has been an upward trend in the number of youth not in employment, education, or training, or what we call NEET. In 2016, there were approximately 259 million young people classified as NEET. Though this rose to an estimated 267 million in 2019, the concerned program director is that it is projected to rise to about 273 million within the next 6 months. This all implies that the international target to reduce the NEET rate by 2020 will be missed. Education and training are central to the achievement of the Global 2030 Agenda, as SDG 4 is, which says, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. We are going to miss that. In this light, we need to look to not just standard traditional education being school and university, but also to look at technical and vocational education and training, or TVET institutions. As the two oldest political parties in the world, the African National Congress and the Indian National Congress, we must work together with our national governments and the private sector to acknowledge and celebrate the importance of equipping young people with skills for employment, decent work, and entrepreneurship. Further to this, we must look to technology to enhance both certified and non-certified training and skills development as a solution to unemployment and meeting the goals of Sustainable Development Goals number 4. The one good thing about the pandemic that is gripping the world is that crisis also creates opportunities. Opportunities are born out of problems needing solutions. So I urge the youth to look at what the problems are in your homes, in your communities, and our countries, and look at what knowledge and skill you already have to solve these problems. Economic activity follows solutions and problems. Technology is an enabler to knowledge, skills, and economic activity. Emerging technologies today in the age of the fourth industrial revolution are allowing us to provide global solutions to global problems, but also local solutions to local problems. A mere 4 months ago, people were talking about 4IR as though it was being created by someone to take human jobs away from the robots we are blaming. I have been saying for the past 2 years, and my speeches for the last few years are evidence to this, that people need to embrace technology, diversity, and hone their skills and knowledge, because 4IR will create more jobs than it takes away. But we have to have the skills and knowledge to be the ones in the job creation pool. So now we focus on the recovery as we slowly make our way back into the world of our new normal. This new way of living means that reliance to technology is not going to ease. It's going to become even more vital. I'm known for saying that you as the youth are not a future generation. You are the now generation. And as governments, as political parties, we have to ensure that the post-pandemic economic recovery meets the needs of the youth. But you as the youth have to look for ways to meet your needs of employment, even in these trying times. I have this to say to you as I conclude, and I also want to welcome, I see one of the South African, Brazil, Serbia member is also here on the screen. Welcome. And as I conclude, I'm saying the opportunities for South Africa and India are immense in this new era of technological advancement. And India leads in the field of technology. So this new normal we find ourselves in allows you to move with precision and efficiency, being more agile in adapting and leading new business models. We pride ourselves with you, comrades, that you are one organization that has the biggest young people in the world. So the Indian Youth Congress is one of the biggest with its constituency. So we're going to learn a lot from you. We are at a critical point of the global technological evolution, as the problems we have to solve are immense. I urge you to work with South Africa's youth in the space of your technological advancement, because we know you lead in this sector to move both our countries forward. I challenge you to turn this world on its head by making your joint presence in the world known. Thank you so much. All power, that's what we say, and we'll say all power to our young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Her Excellency, for your exuberant address in which you have with complete clarity highlighted how with technological advancement and passion and determination put to it, we together as youngsters can lead a new world order. I would like to recognize the presence of the President of South Africa BRICS Association, Mr. Raymond Martella, who has just joined us. Welcome on behalf of the Indian Youth Congress, sir. Taking forward from here, I would seek permission from Her Excellency Ms. Pinky Kekana to begin with the Q&A interactive session. Do we have your permission, ma'am? Ma'am, I think your device is on mute.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'm listening. I'll wait for questions.
Yes, ma'am. So to begin with, I'll request our Indian Youth Congress state spokesperson for the state of Karnataka, India, Mr. Aaron Mirza, to please ask his question. Mr. Aaron Mirza, please go ahead and ask your question. You can unmute.
Yeah, I'm extremely sorry. I forgot to unmute. A very good afternoon, Her Excellency. It has been an absolute privilege and honor listening to you. I was just reading a little more about you, and I understood that you come from the grassroots. You have been a teacher yourself. You're very passionate about the youth, and especially the youth from the rural parts of South Africa. And I think this is one place where the government of South Africa in the times of coronavirus has done tremendously well. You have come up with a relief package where unemployment aid is being granted to the youth in South Africa. Now, keeping this as a benchmark, my question to you, Her Excellency, is how do you think a similar such mechanism could be brought out in a country as large and diverse as India? Because from where I stand and I understand, there is nothing that the government is providing the youth of India in today's trying times, because unemployment is surging world over, and the ones who are getting affected most by it are the youngsters. So how do we tide over this crisis? South Africa has taken a very bold step. How could a country which is as diverse and populous as India also take a step in a similar direction? Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Should I answer?
Yes, ma'am. I think we can take one question after the other.
Okay, thank you very much. I think our spokesperson is very right. And there's something that we should use as an advantage the world over, the youth dividend. Because if you look at the continent of Africa, the majority of young people, of the people are young. And in India, it's the same. Now we've got a few platforms where we can share codes of good practice amongst ourselves. Let's use BRICS as an example of how South Africa is able to create. I mean, we are from developing countries like you guys are. We have the same circumstances almost. We may be differing because of population size. And developmentally, we still go in the same path because you've got bigger rural areas like we have. Now, what then says is that, and this is what government is doing, as industries thrive in South Africa. Let's take the telcos, for instance, telecommunications. There's money that they pay back to the government to say, as we make money, Vodacom, MTN, Telkom, this is the money that we'll also put back to government for government to develop rural areas. So there should be those kind of initiatives that we create, that even the mining companies, from now going forward, we're saying there is nobody who's going to export raw material as is, because the more we export raw material, it means we are exporting jobs, because people are going to beneficiate out there. So why can't we beneficiate from South Africa? If you're not beneficiating, there must be a penalty for that. And that money should assist us to then start to build capacity in the South African situation to be able to have money to do some of those things. So there's initiatives that government use to force the private sector to contribute towards the development of rural areas where development is not taking place, other than only relying on government fiscus, because that will not be sufficient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Her Excellency. Today's session has been possible with the immense support of the United Youth Circuit. I now request Mr. Ashutosh Patnaik, who is the co-founder of United Youth Circuit, to please go ahead and ask his question.
Hello. Good afternoon, Your Excellency. First of all, belated happy birthday to you.
Thank you. It was yesterday.
It's my pleasure and honor to ask you a question. It's meeting virtually second time, and it's an honor. My base question starts from as a constant supporter of African youth from the very start of my career. I have been looking at a very subsequent issue which is currently happening due to COVID-19, and as you are the person in charge in South Africa with regards to communication and digital technology. One thing we have noticed from the very start, and that's even the case which happens in most of the Asian countries, including Republic of India as well, is that due to COVID-19, a lot of things are going into a digital era. And the issue with especially African youth, which we have noticed in both United Nations and organization, is that the digital privilege is very rare to the African youth. And that's one of the main challenges which the African youth is currently facing when there is COVID-19, and the entire process, regardless education or work professional, is going into technology. But the technological privilege is rather not a privilege for many people. So how, in terms of a government and as a person, you support youths and the rural youths, how do you see that the governments can help these crises during this high time?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you are very right. And this is one of the things that has been confronting all of us in the African continent, that there are disparities, the haves and the have-nots, and COVID-19 has exposed how, as governments, the inequalities amongst our communities are. Now, one of the things that, and I'll give an example of the South African government. President Cyril Ramaphosa, when he took over, one of the things was to say, in the next 3 years, we will want at least 14 million tablets to be distributed to children in the rural areas. And COVID-19 caught up with this thing. I mean, this is the first year of the next 3 years, but COVID-19 says you could have actually done it 2 or 3 years ago. So if you look at how the challenges are confronting us in as far as education is concerned, those in the big cities and other areas were able to go online, and those in the rural areas, many disadvantages. One, there's no connectivity. Two, there are challenges of electricity supply. And you have seen how our biggest electricity supplier is seriously under challenged because of the maintenance programs that we must go through. So not only are we talking about people not being connected in the rural areas through broadband, but also we're saying there are areas where, and schools where electricity is also a challenge. So COVID is now starting to say to government, work like there's no tomorrow. But the other biggest challenge is that we may not have money to deal with some of these things. Now, the biggest and more efficient issue is for us to fast track the spectrum availability, because there's an issue of the spectrum in South Africa that it must be available, Ambassador, so that then we can be able to fast track the access in various areas in the rural areas. So we have the regulator who's working on that. Our department is responsible for that as well. So the minister is going to work very, very hard to make sure that the spectrum is released with the Department of Finance or the Minister of Finance and the regulator, so that some of the connectivity challenges that we have, we're also able to deal with that, including digital migration, because for the spectrum to be available, people must migrate. The broadcasting services must move out of the spectrum for the spectrum to be available.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And we're sorry we weren't aware it was your birthday yesterday. So please accept our heartfelt wishes. And
thank you.
You inspiring us the same way.
Thank you so much.
I'll now request Kashish Grover, who is a young student and is an intern with the Communications Department of Indian Youth Congress, to please go ahead and ask her question.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to hear you. My question to you is that it's always said that it's the responsibility of the younger generation, the youth of the world, to look after the country. The responsibility lies on our shoulders, especially during this COVID time. But unfortunately, contrary to this, we find not many powerful political positions are held by the youth in the entire world. Why is that so?
Thank you very much. I think one of the things that the Indian Youth Congress must also do, it's what the ANC has done. In the ANC, we talk about generational mix. So there'll be the elders, there'll be those who are in the middle age, but there'll also be a younger generation that must form part of the leadership in the African National Congress. They should also form part of the leadership in parliament. And then when we also deploy people, whether in parastatals, I don't know what you call them, the SOEs, state-owned enterprises, we also there say, we want youth and women and people with disabilities, so that even when we put people in boards or everywhere, we should make sure that there is that generational mix. Now in Nazareth, the last Congress that the ANC had, the African Youth League, the leadership of the ANC Youth League was saying, in fact, now going forward, we will even need 40% representation. So those are the kind of things. They still have to battle for that. They still have to make sure, because what is policy now in the ANC is that it's 50-50 for women, 50-50. So if it must be a zebra approach, if the first person is a man, the following one must be a female, just like that. But what we also did from the Women's League was to say we want young women to be part of the Women's League. So as we do that 50-50, we also infuse the young women into the leadership and the opportunities that are there. So women and youth have to be in the decision-making positions.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'll now request Rohan Mishra, who is a fellow with the fellowship program Yuva Bhagidari of the Indian Youth Congress, to please go ahead and ask his question. Rohan Mishra, please unmute and ask your question. I think there must be some error. We can move to the next question till that time. Jasraj Singh Narang, who is again a fellow with the Yuva Bhagidari Fellowship Program, to please go ahead and ask his question. I assume there is some network error because of which...
Connectivity problems, yeah.
Yes.
I think it's connectivity.
Yes, ma'am. Still then we can go ahead with the Asim ul Haq, who happens to be our youngest intern with the Indian Youth Congress. He's still a high school student, 16 years old, avenging into the new world of politics through the Indian National Congress. Asim, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Gautam sir, and a belated very happy birthday to Her Excellency Ms. Pinky Kekana. So today, ma'am, as you see, we have started unlocking our nations after the lockdowns. As the COVID approaches its end, we'll start unlocking our nation. But as we unlock it, we will face certain problems. There will be a rapid start of industrialization. The industries will open up, and mining being one of the largest industries in South Africa and also in India, it is one of the main contributors to pollution levels. So how do you think, ma'am, that we will be able to control the pollution levels as soon as the unlock starts, or as soon as the lockdown finishes?
Thank you very much, Asim. I think one of the things that is going to become top on the agenda is the green economy, investment in alternative modes of production that promotes the green economy. And if you look at international bodies, there's lots of money that will be put aside as long as we are doing carbon free emissions, where we make sure that whether from electricity generation, whether from manufacturing and all the industries that we are putting together, we invest more on technology that can reduce emissions. Then that's where we'll be able to look at this. Remember, you are 16 years old now, and it should be in your interest and all of us to make sure that when we pass the baton to the next generation, the world is still intact, it is not contaminated, the ozone layer is still protected because it has its own other repercussions. If the ozone layer diminishes, that's where you'll see lots of cancers and other things and exposure to this and that. So it will be in our interest, all of us, for now, to start investing in alternative technology and even tap from the bodies that are able to give us more money as developing countries, where we invest in those kind of technologies.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'll now request Payal Bose, who is a PhD student and is also working as a research and a panelist fellow for the Indian Youth Congress, to please go ahead and ask her question. Payal, please unmute and ask your question.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, ma'am. It's a pleasure having you here. And
Thank you, Baat.
so, ma'am, I was like, I wanted to ask you if you could give us 3 tips to the youth of India to learn from the youth of South Africa. Then what would that be?
Our young people are at the center of development. And when I'm saying that, we're talking about the youth from the African National Congress. In every decision in the Congress, whether in the structure nationally or in the structure in a province and whatever, they are part of those decisions. So for them to be part, they must be part of the National Executive Committee where decisions are made, so that they too can make sure that they monitor those who are in government to make sure that the decision of the African National Congress are implemented holistically. That's one. 2, one of the biggest achievements they have done is to make sure that young people also participate in various structures, not only in the political, but also in parliament. They are also in cabinet, and they are also in CEOs, but they even established a dedicated body that we call National Youth Development Agency. And that agency sits in the presidency. They speak and go to the president to say, we think on this one, the youth of this country are not benefiting. We think on this one, the youth. So there's a body that also monitors what government does, but they sit with the president in the presidency and say, as NYDA, this is what we think is not being dealt with. And the Minister of Women, who also sits in the presidency, is responsible to make sure that the plight of young people is taken care of. So their participation in decision-making structures, you guys must be there in the Indian National Congress, be represented there. 2, when we put ministers and members of parliament, you guys must make sure that young people's voice is also heard by them being appointed there. 3, there's a body that plays oversight over the plight of the voiceless majority in the rural areas. And that body sits in the presidency. So you being actively involved in those things will make sure that the plight of young people is taken care of.
Thank you.
I'm proud that you are a PhD student and you look very young. You must also take me along.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think very beautifully you explained how it is important to include youth in decision making, and how the African National Congress has always set an example. So has the Indian National Congress. We have had Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who is a young, dynamic leader who has led our party as the national president. We are so proud to have our national president of Youth Congress, Mr. Srinivas BV, as a member of the Congress Working Committee, which is the highest decision-making body of the
Sure.
Even above the governments. That is the body which would send instructions to the governments, Congress governments. So our own Youth Congress president is there. And you see, our Youth Congress is also proud to claim that we are the only youth organization in India to officially announce that all our office bearers, there are 33% women. So we don't have that in any other youth organization pan-India. So it is, I think, the common grounds, morals, which have been shown to us by the great Mahatma Gandhi and the great Nelson Mandela, that we are going towards and trying to build a better globe altogether. I would like to take a few questions myself as the national spokesperson of the Indian Youth Congress, Your Excellency. My question, in this post-COVID-19 pandemic world, the youngsters are looking at opportunities in a confused manner, in a very confused manner. They don't know which sectors to look up to. People interested in the hospitality sector are seeing a closure of the hospitality sector. People interested in the education sector are seeing a closure of the education sector almost. At the same time, the situation for the youth, I think not just in India, but I think around the world, is becoming unclear. My question to you, Your Excellency, is that being in charge of the communications department, being in charge of the digital technologies department, what areas do you see as bright opportunities for the youth pan-globe in future? And how do you think, in which areas from now onwards, in which sectors can the youth contribute the most?
Thank you very much, Program Director, for that important. You really shows you are. There's a reason why they made you the spokesperson. No, you are right. There's a big blow on hospitality. There's also a big blow on your normal schooling and education. So homeschooling, online learning is going to be one of the things that's going to come up. So the good thing about technology, and you guys know it better, it's not about us going through your normal schooling up to university level or whatever. And we're not discouraging people to do that, to do PhD like Payal is doing and everybody. But there may be other young people gifted in their hands to put together solutions and develop IPs that can bring solutions to certain things. There's one thing that you'll never miss in South Africa or the world over. Everybody, when you wake up, after bathing and doing everything, you want to have something in your stomach. So the issue of food security and agriculture, you can't go wrong. What we need to do is innovation to say, if these avocados are only grown during this season, how do we bring technology that can make them to grow throughout the year so that there's constant supply? So bringing solutions to those kind of things, whether you do greenhouse growing of vegetables and other things and so on, it's some of the things that we can look at. The other important thing, COVID-19 has shown how we rely on imports. We now have to look at industries that we can develop and make sure that we produce more, and even as ourselves, South Africa, be able to export, increase our GDP, and make sure that the economic growth will be creating jobs, but will also, because even with food, Africa can feed the world. Even with the manufacturing and all these things, Africa can do that because most of the raw materials are here. even when you talk the iPhone, whatever finishing that is there on all these technologies you're talking about, those raw materials are not in China, they are not in the US, they are found in the African continent. We need young people from India who can come to South Africa and say, guys, let's do things differently. Let's beneficiate this material. Let's make sure we build green economy and manufacture, but be able to produce for the world.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Taking this discussion a bit more further, I would like to also bring forth here that agriculture, agreed, is the industry that the world is looking at today. And specifically to South Africa and India, we have been known as agriculture states. We have been known, the farmers of our countries have been known as the backbones of the economy. What steps has the African government been taking to help the farmers out of this crisis and get them to start their farming again, get them to do it even in a better way and giving them a push forward? And what steps of the African government can thus be inspirational, or you can say a guide for us here in India to follow?
Look, even during COVID, South Africa was able to look at the farmers, how they were hit, and the minister was able to give relief fund. But let me take it a step back to say, remember when we were colonized, our land was taken away from our forefathers, and the ANC government started bringing land back to our people. Now we are at a stage where government is now saying, how do we bring programs that, because people have got their land back, but they can't plow. They don't have money to start doing and making their land to be productive. And this land was productive and it was commercial before. Now the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, together with Land Bank, and unfortunately our Land Bank was hardest hit by issues of financial situations because it lended many people money and other people could not pay back and so on. But there was an intervention by our minister and the president to give it more money and make sure that it's able to rebuild, because the issue of land in South Africa, it's a very thorny issue. And government is at the center of making sure that as we bring land back, let's make that land profitable, because it was profitable. So there are programs to make subsistence farmers, those who can be able to graduate from being subsistence to become commercial. So there's a program, and women and youth will be the biggest beneficiaries in that program.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And I see indeed that as something to look up to learn from, and probably bring it down to India. And as you always said, in a collaborative way, if the youth of India and the youth of Africa starts working, we can actually build a new world order. I would also like to mention here the way you said that the lands were returned to people throughout the struggle of the African National Congress. So did in India, this thing was called Zimindari system. The Zimindari system had also promoted slavery, in which the richest of the rich would keep lands to themselves. And it is Mahatma Gandhi who fought their fight years and years back, and when he got the poorest of the poor their rights back. Before moving further and giving the vote of thanks, I would request Shri Krishna Lavaru, Honorable Joint Secretary AICC, to please give the closing remarks.
Where is it? Is it me who should give the closing remarks, or somebody? Oh, sure.
Hi. So thank you so much, Ms. Kekana. We've been hearing what you had to say quite carefully, and it was a pleasure to hear your views. And also, it was wonderful to see how openly and positively and patiently you've been able to answer the question. So, and we look forward to collaborating in the future. And I'd like to thank the organizers and all the participants for a wonderful session with Dr. Kekana. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll be a doctor one day. Thank you for that compliment.
Ma'am, we could just have the last few lines on this conversation from you to go ahead and end it.
Look, Gotram, I'm very inspired by the consistent programs that you guys are bringing, and probably thanks to COVID-19, because you guys could not have been as aggressive and keeping me so busy through and through. I saw Mr. Matlala here. I saw many faces that I know here. And I think this is very enriching. We need to continue to engage and expose. You know, one of the things that I liked was Asim, our 16-year-olds, because that's where we need to start and expose them. But you also brought other capacities, your Pasal, Payal, and many others. And I like the generational mix that is there amongst yourselves. Let's do that. Let's continue to share amongst ourselves codes of good practice and build the new world order. It is in your hand as young people. You are the leaders of today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I think it is, I would like to, before extending you thanks, in words of Srimati Indira Gandhi, the leading woman prime minister and a inspiration for the women world over. She said, it is the role of the leadership to show a way. It is the role of the leadership to tell how to do a thing. But at the end, it is on the shoulders of the youth to walk that way, to do that way, and to make a change. So in the words of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and I would really like to express to you a warm thanks from Indian Youth Congress and Indian National Congress for taking out time, and the kind of warmth that you have shown and time you have taken out for us today. We are gratified. We will remain gratified. And in future, I hope that such more conversations take us through new inventions and a journey of talking to the youngsters world over.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.